Hello there! So, once upon a time existed the Beatmap Appreciation Team, aka the BAT. BAT members were in charge of ranking maps and general maintenance of the mapping ecosystem, until August 2014 when the BAT split off into a new branch, the Quality Assurance Team, aka the QAT, who was in charge of policing maps promoted by the new BAT. From this day on, the behind the scenes of mapping changed more than ever had in the past, and that's why we're going to talk about it in this video. The changes it brought about aren't what I want to focus on though, we've gone over those in the past. Rather, I want to dissect a specific period of time, the time shortly before and after the BAT-QAT split, in order to understand a few significant things. What the BAT was like before the split, how the split occurred from the perspective of BAT members at the time, and what the transition was like from the old BAT into both the new BAT and the QAT. As someone who joined the new BAT 3 months after the split, I have no way of answering these myself, and so I organized a talk with two people this time. One who took the route of the BAT after the split, and the other who joined the QAT.
My name is Jonathan LFJ, and most people would know me as the longest continuously serving member of the old BAT or the Beatmap nominators now. Or you probably know me because I mapped Tearing and Eastern Dream.
So, my name is Captain, and I'm best known for my time as an active mapper and modder from 2013 to 2016. I'm also pretty well known for being more open than most to express my opinions on certain points of contention within the community, causing a fair bit of friction between myself and staff managers at the time.
So when talking about the BAT-QAT split, I think an important thing to understand is the context of the whole situation, what the BAT was before it was split in two. So I asked these guys how they joined the BAT, which in itself showed just how much the inner workings of mapping changed after this one event.
In 2013, there was two ways to join. One way is that occasionally they would open applications where users would submit a Google form application and how they want to join the BAT, pretty similar to BN's right now.
Yeah, so I didn't actually go through any official application process or do this to become BAT. I was contacted by Popner, who was one of the BAT managers of the time, and he literally just went, "Hey, we recognized you for being pretty good in the community. Do you want to join the BAT?"
And I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was a big beef between the North American and the Asian mapping community. And so when they promote people, they generally have quotas for each region to promote. So you could clearly tell I was part of the NA group, Irreversible was part of the European group, and then Alacat was part of the Asian group, where that level of support came from. So it was very regional at the time.
There's a few things to take away from how joining the old BAT worked. First, the BAT as a team was more personal. The criteria for joining was much less defined than it is now, since promotion was more so based on simply if other BAT members believe they're good to work with. This isn't 100% fair given knowing more people equates to more support, but it at least meant that people within the BAT had more of a connection to one another. Also, considering BAT members prior to the split were part of the game's moderation staff, a level of trust and a working relationship was actually needed. Then second, the BAT was about equal representation. Each of the major regions were given support by their respective BAT managers, a group which was eradicated after the split, ensuring that no region in the mapping world would overshadow another. All that changed after the BAT-QAT split, of course. On August 20th, 2014, a front-page news article was published explaining the new BATs and QAT's functionalities, including how the BAT would become more open and promotion would be more merit-based to reflect the future's automated modding system. From the public, this just looked like another structural change, but how it was presented and perceived by the old BAT on the inside was what I was interested in.
Loctaf sent all of us a post where they're like, we're going to split you guys into qualifiers and unqualifiers. Qualifiers would only qualify or rank maps, and unqualifiers would only unrank maps. So at the time, it was the names weren't put in place, so there weren't QAT or BN or BAT or whatever. We're just called qualifiers or unqualifiers. So
I'm wondering, what were like some of the reactions from old BATs at this time?
I'll let Captain answer this. I honestly don't remember at the exact moment.
I said the same thing. I don't remember.
Yeah. No, see, it's hard to gauge a reaction because we didn't really hadn't discuss this. It just came in the fly. They're like, oh, you have 1 week to reply or something, right?
It wasn't very long. We got the messages, everyone picked, and then we're like, okay, snap a finger, it's all done. And we just kind of had to deal with it from then on. Oh, wow. I just looked at the dates. It was even less. Modding V2 precursor was 8/18/2014. Welcome to the QAT was 8/21/2014. So it was 3 days.
3 days. They gave us 72 hours. Wow, okay.
So did they was there no hints about this before at all?
Yeah, I'm sure they were talking about it for months. in very high staff internal stuff, but the general bat didn't know about it at all.
The lack of warning was what surprised me most about this. Not knowing anything beforehand for something this huge is like insane in my eyes. And with the old bat being moderation staff, I would have expected they had some input on the topic too. However, I guess this choice was more or less in line with what the BAT QAT split was aiming for. Those who chose to be qualifiers, meaning they stayed in the bat, ended up losing their say in much of mapping, Jonathan LFJ being one of them.
At the time, on-ranks were still kind of given a negative connotation and people get flamed on for on-ranking maps. And when they first described the unqualifier to us, it sounded like you could only unqualify. So obviously I didn't like that, so I was like, oh, I'll just pick up qualifier role because at the end they're the same, right? Just different responsibilities. I mean, if you look at the message, it did promise us that everything was going to stay the same. Only your privileges of ranking and on-ranking differs, which clearly was not correct. I just woke up one day and I realized I lost all my permissions for forum moderation and being able to set title or tags. So I messaged Locktab and he's like, oh, this is intended. We just decided to make bats non-staff, so took away all your privileges. And I mean, I was okay with it clearly because I stayed till all the way now, but a lot of people, especially ones in the Asian community, weren't that happy about that. And it felt like that whole permission thing, that whole stripping away our permissions was like an afterthought. I don't know why. And I think after a few months, most, if not all of the old bats would have been out. Even in 2015, the only old bats that remained in the group was myself, Zero Wind, and Charles445, which is really a name. He didn't mod anything for like a year.
Basically, old BAT members were told to make a choice between qualifiers and unqualifiers, BAT and QAT, two supposedly equal groups that only after the system was in place was revealed to be a hierarchy. The QAT retained moderation permissions, while the BAT expanded, lowering its barrier of entry in the process. Then, as Jonathan said, that felt like a betrayal to many old BATs who chose the qualifier route, resulting in their disinterest and quitting. Now, what about the quality assurance team though? The QAT was a new group entirely, so as anyone would expect, it didn't function as smoothly as initially planned. Not everyone who chose the unqualified role was on board with the direction of the QAT, and the job of the QAT was unsustainable in its starting state. Captain, being one of those first unqualifiers, explained to me how the QAT first operated.
When I first heard about the split, I wanted to stay on the qualifier nominator side, but when they updated it to say that unqualifiers could still qualify, I ended up flipping back to the QAT. So we were given this huge PM that basically went over all of our duties as new unqualifiers. The gist of it was we basically needed to check over every single map pretty much every single day. It got very tiring very quickly. Anytime that any map had any concerns about it from one QAT, every single QAT would probably end up jumping in, giving some input, and then from there a disqualification would probably happen. The expectation when we were unqualifying maps was that we would literally hit on rank and then leave. And there would be very little follow-up from us as the QAT. It was supposed to be very impersonal, which only created even more dissatisfaction from the general mapping community. So I left the QAT literally a month after it was created. The official reason I gave was not having enough time for all of the constant map checking because I was starting a new semester in school and I really just couldn't keep up. But in addition to that, I felt myself really at odds with what I thought the initial role would be. I wasn't actually able to help people. I felt like I was really just disqualifying and leaving, and that did not sit well with me personally. On top of that, I also had my first set of disagreements with Lockdav on how things would function within the QAT, and that kind of only got worse over time.
The culmination of that bad relationship ended up being another event with comparable impact to the BAT-QAT split. It wasn't anything like that official news post, it was instead one of Captain's maps being disqualified repeatedly, resulting in a major change to how the QAT functioned. Directly after the split, the quality assurance team was strict in their role. They enforced the ranking criteria and their own experienced opinions on what made a map high quality, even in spite of the public's many disagreements. A year and only a few days after the BAT-QAT split though, Asymmetry's disqualification was the last incident that upheld the original QAT's form of quality control.
And then asymmetry happened. I wrote a pretty long Reddit post about this about a year ago, but basically it was just a really big clash of ideals on how I wanted the map to go and how the QAT saw the map and how they thought it should be. In my personal opinion, I think that it was a lot of Lockdap's personal grudge against me from when I was in the QAT and then later in the GMT, kind of going against the system that was going on, the QAT system. That kind of clouded the overall judgment of the map from the QAT as a whole, but I think the changes that happened as a result of the asymmetry incident were overall good, but they kind of started the slippery slope to where we are now with extremely lax requirements instead of the extremely tight requirements that we had before. And there's, obviously a lot of complaints about the general map quality in the ranked section being extremely low. So I think that the changes were overall good, but got worse when they kind of went too far the other way.
As a result of this whole thing, the QAT loosened up and has continued to ever since. That progression may be a hot topic right now, but I'd rather not go on a tangent about that. More related to the BAT-QAT split, however, I did want to get Jonathan LFJ's views on the development of the BAT, later BMAP nominators, after being involved in it for literally longer than anyone else at this point, which actually does relate to this perspective on the QAT's loosened direction.
I joined in 2013, October 30th. So today, which is 2018, December, I've been more than 5 years as a BMAP nominator, or BAT for about a year, and then nominator for 4 years. Well, from what I've observed over the years of all the drama and chaos that happened, I think strong opinions are short-lived. So generally, people that disagree with others more often, like most of the previous QATs, they burn out really fast. In Captain's example, his burnout was pretty fast, but then there were some others that would just, after a few mapping dramas, they just quit. And I think this is why the QAT turnover is that high. And then this is also why a lot of famous mappers would like to put meme maps. Like if you look at Monstrata's CBCC or Sotark's PP compilation, because I think those are valid ways of responding to negativity and community backlashes. Honestly, if you're going to implement modding V2, this is probably the best time to actually do it, to automate everything and disrupt this whole political or this whole like big mess of BN QAT stuff. That's my opinion, at least.
So yeah, the BAT-QAT split was a major event in mapping history that I think everyone should generally know about because it's shaped how everything about mapping currently works. Knowing how this event played out from people directly involved is icing on the cake though. Anyway, that'll be it for now. Thanks to both of these guys for talking with me, thanks to you for watching, and I'll see you next year. Which means no video next week, by the way.